Hey, this is Dr. Jason Dean. Welcome back. It's 4 o'clock episode. It's Mondays with Morley. Morley, how
Yes,
are you?
sir. I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing great.
Great.
How's life?
Life is actually pretty good. I'm mystified by what's going on outside the world. It just seems Byzantine and bizarre.
Oh,
And
tell me, what are you mystified by?
um, if we know we've got all these people coming in across the border, we know they're all military age. Why are we putting up with this? I don't understand this. It just, you know, it just seems really bizarre. And that's just one of probably 20 things that I could bring up. It's like the world has lost any kind of governor of sanity.
Do you really think, okay, here's my question for you. Do you really think that all that are coming across are legitimate illegal migrants?
You know, I have no idea.
No.
And I really question, are the numbers as big as they say they are? Who's keeping track of this? How do they know? And so much of our life now is just a narrative that someone made up. And I don't know.
100, no, 100. It's 100%. So I bounce back and forth between this. So like I have a good friend of mine comes on who does have people like in government that military that he knows, and talks about and I've had a couple people tell me now there's absolutely Chinese military within those migrants. Like they're coming in, getting ready
Right.
to pop something off here. But then last week in my After Dark membership, I had a chat and I said, this is what I said. Everybody has one of these damn things now, these phones, right?
Right.
And we have people that will take videos of everything. Like there's videos on social media that are just like, why are we videotaping that and posting it? Like, is there nothing, do you have nothing better to do in life at all?
Right.
But you
Right.
know what's not being posted? You know what's not being videotaped? If there are 20 to 40 million people coming through, whether they're paid to stay in a hotel or they're
Right.
with families or they're on, like, where are
It's
they? Because
a lot of people.
last time I checked, we take video of everything out there. And you're telling me that no one's taking video of 20 to 40 million people that are here?
I know. It,
Does that make sense what I'm asking?
it makes no sense at all. No, I totally get what you're saying. And it's this mind-numbing parade of what appears to be facts, but it's just narrative. It's like, so there's just the filter. We're missing the filter to say, that's bullshit. Let's just move on.
It's so true. And it's
You know
such
what?
a narrative every day, isn't it?
Oh my God.
Like what,
Yeah.
like we're like, they are pushing this thing like, they want every American so pissed off. And I'm not saying we shouldn't be annoyed, because obviously if this is all real, then we have a real problem on our hands. But here's the other thing. Okay, I've seen 2 videos now in the last couple months. One was in South Carolina just recently. President Trump, he says, we're gonna defeat Joe Biden in less than 5 months.
Right.
Well, let me look at. I'm not great at math, but let's do this. Let's go. Let's get rid of February out of. February's gone. March, April, May, June, July.
Right.
More than that's 5 months. That's not November. So what
No.
the hell is he talking about under 5 months for?
Well, I got a kick out of Ben Fulford today.
I haven't seen it.
He was just basically saying, "All right, let's cut to the chase. What the hell's going on? Why are we waiting until November? Your whole point."
There's no way.
Yeah. And fascinating video of 3 um, soldiers on horseback
Oh, I
carrying
saw
a.
that.
What is that about? It's like, I don't know. It's just like endless entertainment.
Isn't it torture to be awake?
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah.
I I I don't know.
This is
You talk to people on a daily basis. I talk to people on page. I talk to people who just woke up in 2020. I get some people who aren't. I feel so bad for the people who just woke up in the last couple of years because some of them look at me and they're like, "Why is this happening?" I go, "I don't know
it's
what
wicked.
to tell you."
Yeah, no, it's
Like once you've seen what you've seen, I'm sorry, you can't go back because trust me, you can't go watch a football game again. You can't go. You do stupid
oh
like
no.
and sorry, this side when you know what you know and you know more and more every day,
Yeah.
it's kind of painful. It's mentally painful.
Yeah. And what was actually kind of nice was it started like in 2012. So you had the luxury of being able to dig without feeling the fear of what is going on in the world now. It was like
Right.
it was a more peaceful time to study it. And now as it's kind of coming out of the woodwork, it's like I can't imagine just now waking up. It would be that would be really stressful.
Yeah, we have a few
Oh
years
my
on
God.
us. What have you been up to? You sent me some text about some research.
Yeah. Well, I think I was just talking to another podcaster, 60 something mom, and she mentioned that her daughter was in Thailand and they told her that she was anemic. And I said, I'm just curious
I just
what
love
are
you love the anemic thing, don't you?
I do. Well, it to me it's code for we're going to kill you. We're going to pump you full of so much iron and make you. And what's happening is people are self-medicating. Oh, I think I'm anemic, so I need more iron. And it's just it's out of control. And so this mom didn't know what the blood test was. I said, well, you got to find out. And for a century, doctors knew to measure iron status using hemoglobin. You wouldn't even question. There was no other marker that you would even use because you knew that was 70% of the body iron. It's like, and it's circulating. When you're circulating with iron, you're carrying what? Oxygen on the way in and carbon dioxide on the way out, but it's in movement, and that oxygen can be used for transaction in the mitochondria. That's a good thing, right? And what's happened? The whole narrative flipped. 1972, Jacobs et al. Oh, wow, there's this thing called ferritin. It was discovered in 1937. Huh, that's almost an inverse there. Um, and now, now we're supposed to study stored iron. And guess what you do when you store iron? You got to store oxygen with it. Let's get more iron in the storage chamber and tie up all that oxygen. And it's just, I'm chipping away at decompressing what this whole thing is about. And it's really, it's dark, I think, because people think it's an innocent little protein. It's not. And there's something called protein aggregation. Have you
Hmm.
ever heard of it?
I've heard of it. I don't know. I don't know much about it though.
Yeah, right. Well, think of when you put water in a tray and put it in the freezer,
Hmm.
it freezes, right?
Right.
It
Aggregator brings things together in one spot.
right, right. And nothing like iron. Iron will aggregate proteins in your cells, and it's it's out of control. And so I'd learned a new phrase today. It's protein solubility versus protein aggregation. I'd never realized it was a continuum. And people don't realize that um, as they take more and more iron, it forces more and more aggregation.
Mm.
And so when you're using ferritin, which is a complete lie, we're ferritin's supposed to be inside the cell. It's not supposed to be in the blood. Blood is outside of the cell.
That's right.
And, and nobody knows that. Most of all, the practitioners. They think it's Oh, I'm measuring the intracellular. How are you measuring the intracellular, medium called blood?
What?
Walk me through. Yeah, it makes no sense.
They
And
say that?
so, yes, they've been trained to believe that ferritin is measuring intracellular measures of iron. Like, no, no, it's at best a surrogate. It's not a guarantee, but the confusion around it, and and especially in pregnancy, it has no relevance in pregnancy. If you have any kind of inflammatory, like if you have colitis or Crohn's or any of those digestive issues, or if you have any kind of inflammatory marker that's elevated, ferritin is out the window. You can't use it.
Let me
It's
highlight
not
that. Let me highlight what you just said. No relevancy in pregnancy. That is just so all the moms out there, it's the opposite of what you've been told.
absolutely the opposite. Um, I just got an email from a birthing practitioner, and she's just beside herself because she thinks I'm right, and the two doctors that she works for think I'm a nut job. And it's just, you know, and the patient just wants to have a healthy pregnancy, and this idea that more iron is going to ensure a healthy pregnancy. It's just, people. I don't think people realize how toxic and reactive iron is as a substance.
Of course they don't.
And here's what I've got a colleague who is he's a former OBGYN, so a smart guy. He's coming up the learning curve. He's going through his own re-education, and his wife has Parkinson's, so he's learning about the truth of iron metabolism. But he sent me this really cool article about they finally figured out why oxygen has a greater affinity for why copper has a greater affinity for oxygen than iron does. It's a big deal.
Hmm.
And this is going to go, people are going to go, what's he talking about, man? But the thing is, there's more electrons. There's 9 electrons in the outer shell of copper. There's only 5 in the outer shell of iron. So the copper has more opportunities to grab the electrons of oxygen.
Hmm.
It's 30 times faster. 30 times faster. But yet, we need more iron. And it's
That
just, so I think for me, people have got to question their iron status with a vengeance, and not just assume that the practitioner that they're going to has mastery of all 3 forms: hemoglobin, ferritin, and serum iron, and that one's a bucket, one's a teacup, one's a thimble. They're very different in terms of their importance, and people have got to really question the functional need for iron versus, oh, so it's every facet of iron metabolism requires copper. Maybe I should focus on copper and stop worrying about the iron. And it's I think it's a I think it's a very serious issue that's affecting the health of humanity on a scale that people can't understand. It's so big. It's like you can't comprehend the magnitude of it.
why do those doctors think you're a nut job?
Because I'm flying in the face of their training.
Are these
Anyone,
medical doctors?
yeah, yep,
Okay.
yep, yep.
But they have
They just
nothing to, but they have nothing to back up what they're saying. They're just that's what they've been told.
no, they just said we've got to do an infusion, and she's like, well, can we run a nutritional panel to see if it might be something else? No, and that's this knee jerk um, stance of don't question my instructions. It's just like I I just want people to be more curious. Could there be another way to explain this event? And the patient's caught in the middle.
Well, it 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 makes more money to follow the iron,
I'm tired of that.
but
I
it
mean,
does.
I know you're right. I know
And
you're right.
I'm not saying it. I'm not saying it at a basic level. That's not. I'm not even talking about your average just doctor. A doctor doesn't know that. I'm talking about at a high level. I'm talking
Oh,
about at
yeah.
the
At a macro level,
implementation of
you're right.
medicine.
No, I get it. That's exactly what it is.
I mean, they make a ton of money by going with, because also the copper thing is, I mean, electromagnetics, right? Like the
Yeah,
electricity turns on in a human when you put copper back in.
absolutely does. Yeah.
It's a sick farm.
I think it's time for a new channel. This century long devolution of human health is. I think it's run its course. I think we've done enough of that. Now it's time to flip the channel.
We need to restart.
We do need a restart. Yeah,
There is no, well, I always say that too. I tell people we need a reset, and they're like, oh, great reset. No, we need a reset though. Like this is,
right.
you can't, this can't be fixed, right? I mean,
I don't think it can.
I don't either.
That's the whole thing. Yeah, it's like you have to blow up the model and start over.
Yep. There is no people. Oh, let's fix the Constitution. What are you talking about? Like you might have to reinstall it and start all over again. That's fine. But
Right.
you can't. What are you going to do right now? You're going to go fix pharma. You're going to fix healthcare. You're going to fix hospitals. You're going to fix government. You're going to fix money. What the hell are you talking about?
No, it's not going to
It's
happen.
over.
It's
I know
not.
it sounds horrible, doesn't it?
Well, it does, and I think people enjoy that we have this banter, but I think people are looking for hope. Give me something to hold on to.
Well, see. Here's the thing. Now you're coming to me. I'm a Libra. Okay.
My condolences.
I love being.
I'm a Scorpio. I like to strike.
Oh God, you hold it all in until it explodes.
Yeah, but
I'm my wife. You should say my condolences to my wife because she's a Gemini.
oh wow, okay,
And here's my deal with hopium or hope.
yeah,
I'm all about like I like hope, obviously.
sure,
I'm one of those strange people. Maybe this would be called bit. I'm just gonna say this out loud and brainstorm this, right? If you wanted hope, we should have woke up a long damn time ago. Like,
yeah,
but
right.
my issue is everyone goes, well, I want a solution. I want a solution. You haven't looked at the problem yet. Does that make sense? And I'm big on that. I have people tell me all the time, you say this, you say this, you say this, and I just want a solution. It doesn't work that way.
No, I face that all the time.
You gotta look at the effing problem before like you want a solution. You don't even know what you did wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. They want it, and they want a very simple.
They want to
solution.
fix, and I'm like, you don't get to fix stuff. Like that's like when you're in horrible debt, and you're like, I just want to fix. I'm gonna go to the credit bureau. What if you keep carrying on the bullshit that you keep carrying on, which is spending like crazy and going to gamble and like no, you got to confront the problem first.
That's right.
But
No,
we're not
it's
confronting the problem in healthcare.
in large part because we don't agree on what the problem is.
That is true. How do you? Here's a question for you. Let me give you a future question. How could you? What would the trigger be? What could the trigger be? Another time you're talking about natural health. What would wake up the medical profession?
Great. That's a beautiful question. What would wake it up? Um, if they realized um, if they realized that so many of these chronic conditions have a common origin, if they could take off their specialty blinders and look at it in the context of a metabolic model, and realize that the plaque in the brain is the same as the plaque in the artery, is the same as the this and that. I mean, just begin to see the alignment of how the body responds to a lack of energy. There's a predictable pattern of decay that takes place. If they could, I think, if they could take off their specialty blinders, and if we could put everything into an energy paradigm, get rid of Pasteur, blow up the Pasteur pathogen model, and put it into the paradigm of energy and lack of energy, that I think would shatter the paradigm.
I just thought of something else too. You know who really operates all this? The companies.
Oh, sure.
Because at the end of the day, the companies are making the products that they're using, right?
Right.
So if you shattered the corporatocracy,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
oh, the doctors are going to use only what they're given.
Right.
And educated on what they're given, right?
Right.
I mean, I recall when my father-in-law was given Ensure or something like that, like medical grade Ensure to give him nutrition.
That's a really, I mean, you know what's wrong with that.
And I'm like, okay, that's crazy. But the doctor isn't really making that decision because the doctor's not looking that stuff up. They don't care. They're just like, oh, whatever, like whatever we give them, right? So that goes into the hospital system, the corporations, the people who make it, and we're that science. That's not even science. That's just straight up corporate greed and government. I mean, I don't even know where that would start.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really tantalizing challenge. Is it, where would you start? Where would you begin to rethink the system? I mean, to me, there's got to be a way. What's missing? We have a thermometer for body temperature, but there's no thermometer for what's your voltage? How much?
That's a
How
good
much
one.
energy? How much energy are you putting out?
That's a
Give me a
good
read,
one.
right?
The voltage. We should have a battery meter.
Exactly. You know, and it would start out big and cumbersome, but it would get smaller and smaller. And it's just like you put something in your mouth, and they would know like that. Okay, your meter's off. You're not producing enough juice, and then they start to think about um, the sink? Where is it losing its capacity? Where's the capacitor not working right? And it would just be a very different. I think it would be a very different model, and it would make so much more sense. Stop worrying about these doggone pathogens. I'm not a Luddite. I know they're out there, but when the body's at peak energy production, pathogens can't survive. So let's solve the energy problem. Let's stop carpet bombing the body.
You're too simple.
I know, and I think of the amount of money. Think of the amount of money. I remember doing a forecast when I was back in my hospital days. Doing a forecast. This was in 1985, and we were forecasting what at that time healthcare cost was $400 billion a year, which now it's just like you get yawn when
That's
you hear
kind
that.
of funny, right?
Yeah, but in 1985, 400 billion was a really big number, and we were projecting that by the year 2000, 15 years out, it was going to be $1.2 trillion, which was an unheard of number. And the firm that I worked with was a very high profile firm that had a very real carriage trade clientele. And we went all over the country promoting and talking about this forecast. And the blowback, the pushback. There's no way we'll ever get up to 1.2 trillion, blah, 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 blah.
Really?
Right. Oh my God. Again, go back to the late 80s, early 90s. Those numbers were just ridiculously big. Now, 30 some years later, it's laughable. And I remember meeting some clients years and years and years later saying, really enjoyed that presentation, but you weren't aggressive enough. Like, do you recall how you were passing out with those numbers? And it's just now the amount of money that's tied up in healthcare, people don't realize it's it's an overwhelming. It's a lot.
It's
Go into any coffee shop and just plop down with a cup of coffee and listen to what people talk about.
oh, I know. You know, one of
They're
my
talking
favorite
about-
things. You know, what my favorite things to do is, I don't like to talk to people. I just want to sit there and watch and listen.
Yeah, I do it all the time.
I'll just sit there, watch and listen, and whether it's at a restaurant or whatever, like I'll go if my wife's out of town, I'll just go to a restaurant, sit and eat, and I just listening to people. It's
You can't talk about politics anymore because it's going to piss somebody off. But people very inevitably will talk about their health, and it becomes the dominant topic of conversation. And it's like,
and the
really?
random stuff that people say, oh, well, I have this, and I'm like, my God, like you're not even in the same universe from healthcare as where you need to be.
No, not at all. So
Have you heard of mast cell activation?
well, sure, yeah.
What do you think?
What I think about what?
What
Does
is
it-
it? What do you think of mast cell activation?
Well,
I'm curious.
it's a body that's lost its regulator. The ceruloplasmin, the master antioxidant, has the ability to activate many different enzymes. One of them is histaminase. We know it today as DAO, diamine oxidase. It was originally dextramine, but that's another story. But people who lack the enzymatic punch in their ceruloplasmin will be easily triggered by their environment.
That makes sense. Okay.
Again, the body has lost its ability to bob and weave with the environment. And so, and people get completely hijacked by mast cell activation.
Oh yeah. I've seen some cases of it, and it's ugly.
Well, it can be, but what it's real.
I'm not saying it's this thing. I'm just saying, like,
No, I
somebody
know,
who
I know.
has that thing. We know there's more to it than that, but it's pretty brutal.
It's very brutal, and I would suggest that anyone that has that has significant dysregulation between copper and iron. Copper's too low, iron's too high. Iron is incredibly reactive.
Very interesting. Very interesting. You sent me something about. Hold on. I gotta look at Morley lingo. Hold on. The deception of serum ferritin when it's low. Hepcidin, which is never measured, is high. High hepcidin equals high pathogens, especially parasites.
What's your numbers?
Doctors are now taught to give iron, especially when ferritin is low, which is the worst thing you can do with high parasites. There you go. There you go, viewers. You guys asked me why everyone has so many parasites. Well, there you go.
Yeah,
It feeds them, basically.
they're feeding them. Right. Again, if we live in this world of duality and everything's flipped now, what's left is right, what's right is left, what's up is down. It's like, and it's like, when you understand the literature, when you understand the origin of life on the planet, today makes no sense at all. What we're doing makes no sense at all. And I was fascinated. I've always been intrigued by the use of ascorbic acid for cancer. Well, I finally found an article that explained it. It's just to increase production of hydrogen peroxide.
Ah, that makes sense. I think I've read something about that before. I know
Yeah,
I didn't go deep into it, but
yeah, but it's just that kills the cell. Well, the whole thing's predicated on we have to kill the cancer cell. Well, they shoot horses, don't they? No, that's where it all falls apart. Maybe we can rehabilitate the cell, and and oncologists are taught to kill the cell.
this world.
No, it's like,
You asked for this place, Morley. You asked for it.
yeah, yeah, right. I know. Is there,
There's
is there a parachute that I can use?
parachute. Well, wait. Hey, my understanding. I'm watching some really good remote viewers, and they're talking about a potential rapture looking situation where we just get taken up. So here's the question: good or bad? Would you rather be just taken up and go with your go with a chance,
I don't
or
know. It's a
stay
great.
at this place?
One of my mentors was a world-renowned OBGYN, and I'm not going to say his name, but this guy was amazing, and he taught me everything he knew about magnesium. Really cool guy. And and during one of our sessions, he said, Morley, and this goes back. This was 2012, so about 12 years ago. He said, Morley, there's going to come a time when the spaceships are going to arrive. I said, uh-huh. He said, don't get on.
I don't disagree. That's what I've heard.
And he said, do you understand? I said, yeah. He said, don't get on. I said, okay. So I don't know what rapture would be. It was rapture something
I've
energetic.
no, I've heard that too. I've actually been told like when they if they come,
You
no
don't
matter
want
how
to get
good it
in.
looks, don't
Yeah.
get in.
Yeah. Bzz.
Some questions. Can y'all discuss uric acid and copper sometimes? And I think I think that woman's name is Cindy, who I know, and I'm gonna tell Cindy, Morley's here, relax, everything's okay, the future will be fine. But can you discuss uric acid and copper sometime, Morley?
Sure. You want to do it now?
Go for it.
So the cell needs to make energy. I mean, it's very basic. We're here to make energy. And and if there isn't oxygen, if there isn't sufficient oxygen to create water, then there's a shortage of energy because the conversion of once water gets made, it releases ADP to become ATP. And again, we're making ATP at a rate that we make our body weight in ATP every day. That's a lot of ATP. And we're turning it over, constantly turning it over, turning it over, turning it over, and remaking it. And there's a very prescribed process of remaking ADP into ATP. Well, when things get a little dicey, and there's a um, prevalence of what's called hypoxia, shortage of oxygen, then the cell has to start to innovate. And so it's the the actual creation of energy is cleaving off one of the phosphates from ATP, and that makes ADP, and that ADP is supposed to cycle back into ATP.
Hmm.
But that requires copper.
He says with a chuckle.
Yes. And so when things get a little dicey inside the cell, ATP becomes ADP, and then body says, I need energy. So it cleaves off another phosphate and it becomes AMP.
Oh,
Ooh. And then AMP gets converted. We're looking for energy. It becomes IMP. And then IMP becomes something called hypoxanthine. Again, we're looking for energy.
None yet.
Energy is being given off. And then hypoxanthine becomes xanthine. And when xanthine gets broken down in that one last step to get energy, we get uric acid. So uric acid, think of uric acid as billowing black smoke coming out of the mitochondria. We've done everything we can to try to create energy. And all we're left with is just exhaust. That's uric acid.
Are you insinuating you need copper for these processes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've actually identified 14 places where copper would completely change the dynamic of uric acid metabolism. And the other side of it is, so as uric acid is building up, we got to get rid of it, got to excrete it. Well, that involves the kidneys, right? Well, wouldn't you know that the enzyme to do that involves what? Copper. So if the uric acid is building up in the blood, which it will do if you can't excrete it, well, then it becomes a very caustic element. So the irony is that uric acid at a certain level in the blood it's considered an antioxidant. But when it reaches that, it gets too high, then it becomes a pro-oxidant. And it's very, very disruptive. And within the whole world of metabolic syndrome, you have what are called the 5 highs. There's 5 things that go high in metabolic syndrome. And metabolic syndrome is decimating humanity right now.
Yes, it is.
The rate of diagnosis of metabolic syndrome is out of control.
The rate of non-diagnosed metabolic is insane.
Yes, that's right.
Or I should say just people who don't know what they're dealing with and they don't feel good.
Right. So the 5 highs are hypertension, high blood pressure, hyperglycemia, high blood sugar, hyperuricemia, high uric acid in the blood, and then hyperlipidemia, my cholesterol is out of control. And those are the 4 quadrants of metabolic syndrome: blood pressure, lipids, glucose, and uric acid. And then as that builds, then you have what's called insulin resistance. And that leads to hyperinsulinemia. And that's the 5th high. And all 5 of those, boom, when body has sufficient bioavailable copper, that all goes away. The cholesterol is absolutely a sign of low copper. Dr. Clave proved that in 1973. 1986, they knew that there was an issue between copper and glucose intolerance. And so when there's an intolerance to getting glucose in the cell, then we go to plan B. That's called insulin. And insulin is a backup plan to a body that can't naturally insert sugar, and it involves transporters that are copper dependent. It's very frustrating to have this, and it's not, there's no awareness of it. Blood pressure it's a signaling issue. All sorts of issues around angiotensin and vasopressin, all of these signaling peptides that aren't communicating properly. Why? Because they're not activated properly. Why? Because PAM enzyme can't do its job. And so then we're left with insulin. It's just this, it's like a SWAT team that comes in and forces things, but there's a price to pay for insulin, and that's iron injection into the cell. There's a 2 to 3-fold increase of iron into the cell. And so insulin is spelled with an I. So think about iron when you're thinking about insulin. And diabetes is completely related to iron overload. Fat cells fill up, pancreas fills up, liver fills up with iron, eventually the heart. I mean, it's like, seriously? Does no one else know this? And it's so carefully written up in the literature, but apparently not enough people are reading it, or they're just saying, well, it can't be that serious. It's really serious. It's very serious. And so the way I look at it is, I like to see a ratio. I like ratios in the blood work, and so ideally ceruloplasmin should be 30, and ideally uric acid should be 4. So that's 7.5. The ratio is 7.5. And so one of my colleagues um, had a ceruloplasmin of 16 and a uric acid of 7.5. 7.2, excuse me, 7.2. He said, well, I'm close, right? I said, no, you're not close, because you're at 2.5 and you're supposed to be at 7.5. And when he heard the numbers, then he realized, oh wow, I'm really off. He was thinking 16 was close to 30. It's not, but he thought it was. And 7.5 is close to 4. It's not. But when you put it in the context of a ratio, suddenly he realized he was orders of magnitude out of whack. And so I just think it's a really easy way of assessing. Ceruloplasmin is measuring copper, and uric acid is revealing, is there a lack of copper? It's really cool. And the thing that's really amazing is the step to get from um, to actually produce uric acid, to turn xanthine, so you have hypoxanthine, then uric acid. The step to get from xanthine to uric acid, it's iron dependent. So you've got an iron problem if you've got a lot of uric acid. And why do you have an iron problem? Because you don't have enough copper on the front end to regulate it. And then what's amazing is there's an enzyme after uric acid called uric acid oxidase. It's copper dependent, and it neutralizes uric acid. Now, allegedly, that enzyme is like vitamin C, where we don't have it anymore. But what Leslie Clavé pointed out in an article in 1986 is there were many, many studies done in the 50s that talked about uric acid oxidase and its functionality, but now it's no longer functional. And we're supposed to believe that it disappeared 50,000 years ago. He said, it was working in the 50s, what happened? And it's just, again, there aren't enough people who've taken the time to connect all these dots to say, gosh, the body's really designed to balance itself, keep itself in proper rhythm. And we live in a world now where there's a snake under every rock, and there's a disease, every second being identified, and people don't know that there is a mechanism to regulate all that, and it requires energy, and it requires IQ, and the body needs copper to do both.
Have you ever looked back in like 1800s or even 1700s? Have you looked back and trying to find out where things went off the road? Things were like, because I mean,
Yeah,
we know like chiropractic 1800s. We know like there's fat healthy books back in the 1800s and earlier than that. Like there was a lot of great health research, and then it went off the road because they took it off the road. Did you look from a copper standpoint?
well, I think yes, I've looked at it, not necessarily from a copper standpoint, just to understand its standpoint, and um, it was in the early 1800s, 1820s, when they realized how nice it was to have sugar. And the Germans figured out that they had the perfect soil for sugar beets. That's when there was a big change. That was a massive change. When they started to um, study the spleen, they were studying the spleen for hundreds, millennia, but it was in the up until about 1840 in Europe, they were obsessed with the spleen, and then suddenly it just fell out of favor.
Hmm.
Like, well, what happened?
That's odd.
Louis Pasteur.
Mm.
The spleen was the antibiotic, and he got people spooked by the bug because he put it under a microscope. And the spleen is the antibiotic, and it's absolutely probably the best book on just the insanity of that is The Untold Story of Milk by Ron Schmidt.
Yep.
Wonderful, wonderful book. And it's a long book, folks, but it's like there's a wow factor to it. And because he really lays it out. And then I think the third big change was around the time of the First World War, when they started really messing around with nitrogen fixation. And they realized that they could not only do it in the soil, but they could do it in the air. And Fritz Haber really, he's a real piece of work. And he did some really bad things. And I think a lot of change came as a result of that. The whole change in farming as a result of synthetic fertilizers blocking the uptake of copper was massive. And I don't think civilization's been the same since.
Wait until you see what's coming.
I'm terrified to even
I have a couple stories probably by tomorrow or Wednesday that I'll send to you.
Yeah.
Of what they're gonna do to food. My God. I mean, it like, I don't want to be a downer, but
Yeah.
it's almost looking like, and the people who are doing it, minus the people at the top, I've listened to some young people talk about it from a science standpoint, and they just think they have no clue. They think this is the greatest thing in the world to go to a lab to get all of our nutrients, and at this rate, we will be on our own independent farms in communities by the time this is done, if they get their way, because they're going to push us all out of their system if this is what they want people to eat. It's really, really crazy. Everyone's on hydrogen. Why are people so jacked up on hydrogen? Anyway, I'm not gonna do the hydrogen thing today. I see so many premature births, 23 to 24 weeks, and it's really heartbreaking. I'm no expert, but I expect the jabs. Well, but we also know the jabs jack up your iron.
Jabs jack up the iron, but 24 weeks you're bumping up against the third trimester, and that's when the copper download starts. If there's no copper, you're not going to go into the third trimester. That'd be the first thing I'd be thinking about. And there's more oxygen in the womb in the third trimester, and you better have copper to deal with it. See, nobody thinks about it in those terms. Nobody's thinking about it from an energetic standpoint. Nobody's thinking about it from a oxygen is a really important element on this planet. You got to regulate it. You got to manage it. And sounds like copper's got the upper hand. Maybe that would be, but nobody thinks about it that way.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, especially birthing practitioners, because they have been trained vitamin D and iron. That's all they know.
Oh, I just found the new guy on Twitter, X. He is hammering on vitamin D. not for it, against it, as in rat poison. Why would you take this? How horrible it is. And there's a couple, it's a bummer. There's a couple products out there that they would be good products if they got the D out.
They get, oh yeah, right. Absolutely. They poison it with all
So frustrating. I'm like, oh, I would take that product, but there's D in it.
No.
Annoying to me. Interesting. Looking through the comments.
It must be on your side. I'm not seeing them on my side.
No, there's some Rumble. There's a lot of more Rumble comments there on Facebook. Rumble's busier.
Okay.
They like your view on pathogens.
Well, it's just they're there. It's important to know they're there, but don't. Again, we got preoccupied. We got blinded by the pathogens. And
Well, there's also a group out there that says there's no pathogens, which I think is also ridiculous.
Even if there isn't a pathogen, there's some energetic expression that
Correct.
weakens our resolve.
Correct.
It really is an energy issue. I don't care how you get around it. All life needs energy.
That's
There's
it.
no other way around it.
Well, I mean, what do we always talk about? What is the most? Hey, here it is. Morley, what is the most common symptom you hear?
Fatigue. Well, I hear, but
I'm tired. I hear it every day.
oh, I'm sure you do.
Energy, tired, etc. Right?
Right.
Over and over and over again. And then it's funny because if you want to talk politics, you talk about President Trump. And you know what they say? You know what everyone says? How does he have so much energy and he sleeps so little?
He does. Yeah, I think he only sleeps like 3 or 4 hours a night.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe he's tapped into something.
Maybe, yeah. Right.
Oh. And he eats shit food too. He drinks Diet Coke and eats fast food.
Yeah, I've never studied his diet. I don't know.
Oh, it's not good. And I know that firsthand. Not firsthand, but I know secondhand from people who are around him. Right. But maybe there's more to this whole thing than just, maybe there is a copper and electromagnetic. Interesting, Morley.
I don't know. So the way I look at it is we need an upgrade of our foundation. And then we'll see what's left over that needs to be fixed. That's what's missing. Our energetic foundation, I think, is flawed.
Oh, yeah.
And people do when you're low energy, then you become a feeding trough for the pathogens. Because they wake up in low energy environments. They feed on low energy. You'd think it would be just the opposite. No. They perk up when it's low energy.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be the tails of the pH meter is when they wake up.
Let me throw this one at you then. There was a time when Donald Trump said he believed that you're here for a period of time and that you have so much energy in the battery. And when the energy in the and he didn't say battery as in like you're given a certain amount of energy. And when it's gone, you're done. Almost as if he knew something about the battery, as in like you are a electromagnetic.
I'm not sure I buy that.
I'm just saying he said that out loud. That's why it's curious.
No, I've never, it's an intriguing thought, but I think that if you follow Jerry Tennant's work, the whole purpose of a battery is to recharge it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree.
Yeah. So, and I think our body it has different forms of batteries.
Yeah. Real quick, flash answer. What are your thoughts on hydrogen peroxide?
As a bleaching agent, or
no? That's what's being asked. So I'm curious.
What are my thoughts on hydrogen? Well, it's a naturally occurring element. The oxidant that's given off the most is superoxide. It very quickly becomes hydrogen peroxide, either by natural means or enzymatic reaction. And um, it's not an oxidant per se, but it's very disruptive to metabolism. And so H2O2 is not 2H2O. So what happens is if the mitochondria can't produce 2H2O, it's going to produce H2O2, and then it becomes a very disruptive element in the metabolism. Um, but it is a bleaching agent. And so why does hair lose its color? I used to have red hair. Well, as you get older, you have more hydrogen peroxide, and you lose the color of your hair. You lose the color of your organs, folks. Our organs are supposed to be a very vibrant color. If it's exposed to too much hydrogen peroxide, it's a problem. Now, what they might be referring to also is using it as a food grade hydrogen
Yeah.
peroxide. And that is, I mean, I have done that. I wouldn't do it regularly, but again, I think it's showing if you need food grade hydrogen peroxide, it means your system's not working right, because we're supposed to be able to regulate the production of hydrogen peroxide and then neutralize it to oxygen and water. But if you start to expose the tissue to a lot of hydrogen peroxide, short term, it's going to do its job. It's going to wipe out whatever the pathogen is, but you got to be able to neutralize it. And if you weren't able to produce it naturally, you're probably not going to be able to neutralize it naturally. That's what I'd be worried about.
I like it. It's good stuff, sir.
Well, thank you.
Thanks for being with me today.
Yeah. We got work to do, buddy.
You're not joking. You're not joking. There's so much. It's frustrating, but it's not frustrating. I don't want people to think that like it's annoying to them, but I spoke for my wife on Saturday at her seminar, and they're all learning nerded out stuff, and I'm like, that's cool, but I'm still getting questions about meat and how bad it is for your I'm still getting questions about are carbs okay to eat, and I'm like we. And I blamed them, but in a nice way. I'm like, we're not being effective enough, because at the end of the day, we're getting our butts kicked, and people are still asking if meat's okay and if sugar's okay. Like, that's 20 years ago plus.
No kidding, right? Yeah.
You the same. I know you the same. You're getting the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Unbelievable.
Wow.
Our recommendation is the Morley's Copper out there. You go to bravetvcopper.com to get that. Follow the dose, follow the bottle, right? Follow the bottle.
Yep. Absolutely. Yep.
And I take a few a day myself, sometimes more. I'm working on reversing this right here. The color.
There you go.
The color.
Yep. Yep. Showing your wisdom.
I'm right here. You had the mental, right?
Yeah.
Oh, Morley, thank you. I appreciate it, buddy.
Likewise. Appreciate the opportunity.
Everybody, this is Mondays with Morley. This is Morley Robbins. Check him out. He'll be back probably next Monday. You guys all have a great rest of your day. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.